Hi, welcome to the bathtub, where when you hear this sound effect,
Hello!
We're so happy that it's your birthday. We hope you have an awesome day.
That's right.
you know it's a special birthday edition of the bathtub. We used to do this when this was a children's cartoon show in the morning. We used to people send in birthday celebrations and best wishes. We'd read them out, in between the Bugs Bunny cartoons. And I decided that since we've turned this into a highbrow literary show, that we would do the same thing. And today, because our friend Andy McKinney, the stalwart and always proactive Andy, informed me, and I didn't even know about this, but it was my old friend Brian Moore's 100th birthday, the day before Thanksgiving. So this is a new theme is 100th birthdays. We're having a special 100th happy birthday for Brian Moore, my favorite, one of my all-time favorite writers, probably my two or three favorite writers of all time. I've read all his books many, many times, and we're just going to do a very brief episode connected to this, but just to say happy birthday, Brian. We miss you. We wish you were still writing all your wonderful books. You don't look a day over 90. We're thrilled that there were some people in Exeter University in London who remembered your 100th birthday. Instead of not just these boring people like Shakespeare and Beethoven and all that crap. They always have 400th birthdays. It's a good thing they actually remembered a good writer's 100th birthday. Happy birthday, excuse me, Brian. We're reviving. We've been running a kind of a series which is called for no reason whatsoever, reading the novels of William Trevor and Brian Moore backwards. And there's only one real premise for this show, which is I like both William Trevor and Brian Moore, the two of my favorite writers, and I haven't really read many. There's a lot of William Trevor's novels I've never read. I've read. I think I've read all his short stories and all his short story collections, but I haven't read many of his novels. So I use this as an excuse to go back and talk about all of Brian Moore's novels, make sure we've discussed all these wonderful books. And at the same time, I've been actually, even though I haven't done an episode of this in about a year, I just realized I have actually been reading these books again. So I just thought I'd talk very briefly about them. We'll start with Brian, just because he's still my favorite novelist. The Mangan Inheritance, if we're working our way backwards from the last one we talked about, which I think was The Temptation of Eileen Hughes. This is a great period of Brian's novels. His novels are just, this period in the 70s and 80s and 90s was they just kept getting better and more interesting. And he started playing around a lot with thrillers. This is actually, I hate to use the term, a horror or macabre or a ghost story. It's about a man who goes back to Ireland to find his family, people in his family, and to solve a mystery about sort of identical figures in his family. Every generation, the men pass down almost the exact same genetic characteristics. It's about, as usual, the central character is a loser who's I think he's getting divorced in the beginning of the book. There's a lot of divorced losers in Brian Moore's novels, and he sets that character up, and then he takes him off onto this kind of weird mystery, this weird macabre, it's a weird tale in a way. Something that I think Brian Moore started to play around with genre a lot at this period, and I enjoyed it the first time. I enjoyed it the first time I read it. It got really mixed reviews, unfairly, I know. I liked it, and I don't know if I was as wild about it as I normally was, but as often happens, I reread it a few years ago, and it is one of my favorite reads from Brian Moore. It's a really, really absorbing novel, and about a man trying to find happiness, which happens a lot in Brian Moore's books. The one before that, and let's get the dates down here. Again, this is a great period for Moore. 76 is The Doctor's Wife. This is probably the second novel I read of Brian's. I'd read the Temptation of the Lonely Passion of Judith Hearn, which is a really dark, sad book. This is a very different book. It's about a woman's sexual awakening, really, about a woman who's been in a bad marriage for years, not to a bad man. Her husband's actually a perfectly nice man. She finds her husband and her son, kind of boring, and they don't seem to find her very interesting. And she goes off on a holiday and meets this man, and they just kind of have this passionate sexual energy. And it's about her leaving her family, basically, something that is not, which particularly in the 70s, I don't know if anybody wrote it sympathetically before, but it's a very sympathetic novel about a woman deciding that she doesn't want to be with her family anymore. And you really like her. I love this book. I've read it many times. It's one of my favorite of Brian Moore's novels. And again, this sort of period really was just he just really started in the 70s and just was trying all sorts of different things. And it's a wonderful book. The Trevor novels, the last one I read was just actually a few months ago. I've been meaning to do one of these episodes, and the 100th birthday just as an excuse. A short novel by William Trevor called Nights at the Alexandria. It's not a novel, it's a long story. Trevor's a short story writer. He's not a novelist. I like his novels, and I'm glad I'm reading them. But this is actually a really good story about a kid recalling a woman and her husband who come to his town. There are always these little provincial towns in the middle of nowhere, and I can't remember it. I've already forgotten a lot of this book. And this woman and her husband who come to town, the kid gets kind of a crush on the mother, and they open up a giant movie theater. And it's about working at this big, giant old movie theater in a small town, really in the last gasps of the big movie theaters. This is a really good Trevor story, very long story. And The Silence in the Garden, one I have not read. I read this about 6 months ago, and I've already forgotten a lot about it. It's about somewhere in County Cork. It's some island house. I believe the families are Protestants, like some old Protestant family who are kind of the gentry, the local the upper crust family who have this big estate and who kind of lord it over the town. And it's about the different family members over a period of about 20 or 30 years. And I really like this book. At the same time, there's a kind of it takes place over a long period of time, so it feels episodic. It feels like a number of short stories. And I did feel that there was a bit of withholding there's a crucial event that occurs about halfway through this book that they don't really tell you about till later. He does this in a few of his later books. And I think it's not the sign of it. It's not something that Moore would ever do. And Moore would never take a place over long periods of time because he would really start the story going, and you'd have to get it finished in a few weeks or a few months. This takes place because it works out as episodic better. There's some lovely stuff in it. So again, I'm just basically comparing him to I think the greatest novelist of the past 50 years. It is unfair. He's the greatest short story writer, probably, of the past 50 years. And his novels are definitely worth reading. I really enjoyed it. I felt it was a little bit contrived in terms of the resolution, and that's basically it. I'm glad I'm reading these. Okay, I made that really quick. Happy birthday, Brian! You did a great job. We're glad that remembering you, and you deserve to be remembered, and all your wonderful books. And we'll continue reading these books backwards because I haven't read most of the early Trevor novels, so this should be interesting. Okay, happy bathing. Stay safe. I got my really nice shirt on for the bathtub for the 100th birthday. I don't go to birthday parties. I always dress up, and that's why I've got a purple shirt. Take care.